to what you asked me, but
Well, can
that's a memory
you?
that sort of stays in my brain, right?
Yeah, no, that's a marker. I call them markers. It's
Yeah.
just something that you remember because it has very great meaning, and it really does. So, do you remember your parents seeking out your thoughts and ideas and conversation? Like, oh, let's go for a walk, let's catch up, and what do you think of this, and what do you think of that? And, trying to pursue and understand what was going on in your head.
No.
I thought that was very quick, and I'm not disagreeing with you. And how old are you now?
67 right now.
Right, okay. So, over the course of your life, how many people have shown great interest in your hidden thoughts and ideas and experiences and memories?
Uh, yeah, I can't really think of. Um, I can't really think of too many. Can't really think of too many times that happened because I just got into the habit of deferring,
You're setting
asking
other
questions.
people up to talk, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay. And I understand that. So, how many people? So I asked you how many people. You said I can't really think of it happening too many times, which is a bit, it's funny
Yeah, yeah.
because I have, after doing this for decades, a very finely tuned sense of evasion. Like I know when people are kind of,
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that meme where Homer Simpson just sort of backs away into the hedge, right?
No,
And
no.
and so I know very clearly when people are dissembling or being evasive. And I'm not saying it's a conscious process or anything like that, but when
Hmm.
people have a question they don't want to answer, they don't say to me, almost never, almost never say to me, Steph, I don't want to answer this question. It makes me uncomfortable. What do they usually do?
Yeah, they'll make stuff up, right? Or
Well, they'll
evade.
just give me a
Yeah.
bunch of loosey
Hmm.
goosey fog. It's kind of like
Yep.
if you reach for an octopus underwater, what do? They jet out all this ink and then they
Yep.
just slither away, right? And
Yep.
so a lot of times with people when they're talking, you ask them a question, they're not comfortable answering it, and rather than say directly, which is not easy to do, right? But rather than say directly, "Ooh, that kind of hits a nerve," or "I don't really want to answer that question," or "I have an urge to not answer that question," they do what psychologists call acting out. And what they do is instead of saying, I don't want to answer this question, they pretend to answer the question. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I honestly though, I don't. I'm not trying. I'm not. I wasn't actually trying to evade your question. Honestly, I was trying to.
No,
I don't have perfect. I don't have a perfect recall.
no, no,
And
no. Now, see,
okay.
now hang on. I'm sorry to be annoying. So then what they do is they pivot to intentions. So I'm going to question your level of self knowledge. And look, we all have areas of self knowledge we need to work on. So again, I say this with all humility. I'm going to question your area of self knowledge. Because what people do is when people don't want to answer a question, they will not answer the question indirectly, right? They'll just give me a bunch of syllables that don't add up to much. And then what they do is they claim intention and they say, well, I didn't mean to not answer your question, which is unverifiable. And of course, if you know everything about your motives, then you would have said to me, I don't really want to answer your question, rather than just not answer the question with a bunch of syllables. And then what they do, and I'm sorry to say, this is NPC predictability. Of course, I'm not saying you're an NPC. I'm just saying in this particular sequence, the pattern is very clear. So I ask a question, somebody's uncomfortable. They'll then give me a non answer disguised as a question. I'll point that out. They'll say, I didn't mean to not answer. And then if I push further, or if they're on a roll, they do what you did at the end there, where you say, I don't have perfect recall, which is a non sequitur. I mean, so you're saying that I am demanding that you have perfect recall for the entirety of your 67 years. Of course, I'm not asking that, right? So that's an oddity to me because nobody's ever asked you to have perfect recall. I'm not even sure if you remember what the question was. And if you do, if you could repeat it back, that would be helpful. I'm not trying to give you orders. It's just if you could.
Yeah, you asked me. You know, you asked me for an example of somebody who had listened to me
I
or
did,
asked
I
questions.
did not. I
No.
did not ask you
Okay.
for an example. I said, how many people over the course of your life have shown deep interest in your thoughts and feelings?
Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah, and that's. I'm at a loss to actually answer that question.
One right now, right now, there's one, right?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay, and I think this is why you're calling back, right? So you can't think of people, and I'm sad for this, I really am, and you can't think of people who, and this is true for listeners, everyone asks this for yourself, it's important, right? You can't think of people over the course of your life who've shown deep interest in what you think and feel, is that right?
Yes.
Right. So what impression does that give you about how interesting you are?
Boy. Maybe I'm not interesting at all. Yeah. Good point.
I mean, do you have that experience? Do you feel like if you try to get people to talk, either you have to cue them up to speak because people love to talk, or you're not able to provide much value because people haven't shown much interest in you?
Oh boy. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like I don't know. I think I'm a pretty interesting person, but maybe I'm just, delusional.
Well, no, listen, I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't know what the answer is. So that's a very interesting challenge, right? And I don't know the answer to this. If you are an interesting person, and honestly, I think the more honest we are, the more interesting we are, and the more direct we are, the more interesting we are. So if you are an interesting person, then why are people not interested? That's a big question. And I've asked myself this. So again, I'm right down here with in the trenches with you, but that's a big question, right?
Yeah.
If you are an interesting person and over your 67 years, almost no one has shown interest in your thoughts and feelings, what does that mean? I don't know the answer to that, but there's something in your head that is putting things together to explain this. How could this be possible?
Well, I guess I've just sort of accepted it at this point.
Accepted what? You're interesting,
Well,
but people aren't interested.
well, I mean, we're all interesting to ourselves, right? So, it's kind of hard for me to sort of say yes, I am interesting, or I'm not interesting
Well,
because
you're interesting to yourself, but other people aren't interested.
yeah,
How do we explain that?
I don't know. That's a very deep question, I think, or
Well,
maybe
I
it's
mean,
not a
you're
deep
talking
question.
about Robert Pirsig. This is a pretty deep book, right? So, and I'm happy to other people to chime in with comments about this as well. So, in general, and maybe there's other options, but I think there's a fork in the road when we come across this kind of contradiction. I'm interesting, but people aren't interested in me. Either there's one of two possibilities. Well, three, I guess. Either A, I'm not interesting, but everyone's interesting because we all think and feel and have dreams and aspirations and ideas. So it's not true that you're not interesting. If people aren't interested in you, it's one of two things. Either you're bad at communicating and there's too much work for people to get to what's interesting about you, or what's the other option that could happen or could be?
Yeah, maybe I put people off somehow.
No, but that's the first one. So the first thing is that you're somehow not good at communicating, and therefore people can't burrow through to get through to what's interesting about you. It'd be like I have a really great art gallery, but it's surrounded by landmines, barbed wire, and pit bulls. People are like, I don't know. I mean, maybe the paintings are good, but I'm not braving all of that, right? So it's too difficult
Okay.
for people to get to the art gallery. So one option is that you make it very difficult for people to find out what's interesting about you. But what's the other option? Nothing to do with insulting you, but what's the other option?
Hmm. Maybe maybe I'm just not interesting.
No, that's everyone's interesting. What's the other option? And the fact that this is hard to see is fascinating.
Ah. I don't know. What's your opinion? What's your idea on that?
Oh, it's not even an idea, it's a fact. So
Okay.
we eliminate that you're not interesting. The only other option, if you're good at communicating what you think and feel, the only other option as to why other people don't find you interesting is they're narcissistic, solipsistic, self-regarding assholes who wouldn't be interested in another person if they were on fire and holding a hamburger.
Okay.
That you are surrounded by people who are so self-absorbed they couldn't be interested in anyone other than themselves,
Okay.
i.e. your parents.
Right. Okay.
Everyone's your parents. And we do that. Like when we have bad parents, and I'm not saying they were terrible, right? But when there's this selfishness of not being interested, you owe your children attention. As much as you owe them food and shelter, you must give your children attention. Like if I get some whippet or greyhound that desperately needs to be walked as my pet, I owe that dog to be walked. I owe it. And if I don't want to walk my dog, I have to give it to someone who will. So when you have children and you keep them at home, you owe them attention and you owe them interest. That is a foundational deal with the universe that you make when you have children, because children can't get people to be interested in them who aren't their parents in general, unless they're creepy pedos or something like that, right? So if your parents are so self-absorbed that they can't show any interest in you, your tendency will be to hang around lots of people in your life who are also self-absorbed and cue them up to talk about themselves and not impose your thoughts or ideas on other people. And so my guess is because your parents didn't show interest in you, for your life, you tried unconsciously to normalize that behavior by surrounding yourself with other people who were self-absorbed and wouldn't show interest in you. And therefore, you ended up in the service of self-absorbed people, as most of us do, at least for some portion of our lives. You ended up in the service of other self-involved people by queuing them up the ability to talk about themselves, which is what narcissistic people love to do.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean that kind of explains. Do you remember that I called in on a call-in show? It was I had just finished listening to your episode where you were getting makeup put on your face by your daughter. I don't know if you remember that. And I called in and I said I envy. I am very envious of your daughter. I wasn't envious of you. I was very envious of the interaction that she was having with her parent, with you. And now I think back on that and I think, yeah, okay, to me now, that with this conversation we're having now, that kind of makes perfect sense for me now. Yeah.
So what your father should have done, in my humble opinion, all those years ago, is he should have got two presents for you, a small one and a big one. And you know what was in those two presents?
Well, there's probably one of those presents would have been what I wanted, what I asked him for, perhaps.
The cowboy outfit, right?
Yeah, and then the other one would have been a cricket bat or a soccer ball. Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to be annoying. I am. I'm going back in time.
Okay.
I'm going back in time 60 years to fix your dad.
Okay.
What your dad, if you're really into cowboys, your father should have got you two presents. Number one, you ready for some emotion?
Yeah. Okay.
Number one, he should have got you a little cowboy outfit. Number two, he should have got himself a big cowboy outfit so that you and your dad could play cowboys together.
Oh boy, this is really getting to me now.
I'm telling you, I knew the floodgates would come because that's what your father should have. He shouldn't have met you halfway. Oh, well, fine, I'll give you that's fine. So for you, it was like my father should have got me a cricket bat or a soccer ball, but at least, no. If your kid's into cowboys, what do you do as a parent? You get into cowboys, right?
Yeah.
You go and you say, hey, tell me the cowboy stuff. What are we going to do? Let's go catch some Injuns. Let's go rescue the maiden from the train robbers. Let's go take down the sheriff who for the bad guys, right? Let's go rope some cattle. You go and make up the games for what your children love. Because you enter into their world and you get to learn what they like and why. And you validate that cowboys are interesting and they're a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I'm shaking a little bit here right now.
But wouldn't that be what a father would do?
Yes. Yeah.
We don't know what our kids are going to be interested in. My daughter has had interests that are incomprehensible to me, which is fine because I have interests that are incomprehensible to her. But I try to learn as much about what is interesting to her and try to enter into the world that she finds interesting so that I can both understand and validate that these things are interesting.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking right now.
Well, tell me what you're feeling. What are you thinking?
Oh, it's really hard for me to.
And I'm sorry he didn't do that. And I'm sorry that your mother didn't say, he's into cowboys. Go play cowboys together. Right? Isn't that what you should do? You know, my daughter's into makeup. And this is why it was emotional for you when I did the show with my daughter. My daughter's into makeup. So what do? I let her put makeup on me on a live stream. I don't even use makeup for my regular show. I know a lot of people in, quote, media do, right? So my daughter wants to do makeup. Fine. Let's do makeup, right? I'll find a way to enjoy it. And it was fun, I think. And so when your kids are into stuff, you go into their world.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh. Oh.
And it's always amazing, and I compliment your very big heart and sensitivity for this. It's a lovely thing to be a part of, and I really do appreciate your trust in this conversation. But isn't it amazing how fresh these wounds are 60 or more years later? Isn't that
Yeah.
wild?
Yeah, it is.
You know, there's a guy in Japan who kept an apartment rented for 27 years. His wife was killed in the apartment. They couldn't find the killer. This was decades ago, of course. And he paid rent for 27 years. Do you know why?
To preserve his memory of his wife?
No,
Okay.
to preserve the evidence of the crime.
Oh boy. Christ.
And then eventually what happened was the DNA advanced to the point where they caught the killer. And he put hundreds of thousands of dollars of his money into keeping that apartment in a perfectly pristine state so that nobody went in or out. It was never rented out again. Nothing was ever cleaned. And then eventually, when the DNA had advanced enough, they were able to go in and catch the killer. And what I mean by that is the scene of the crime, the scene of the sadness, the scene of the tragedy was sealed off as if time passed outside of it, but never within. It was a little set of cubicles of frozen time. And that's kind of like our hearts with our childhoods. That when the disappointment and the sadness comes in, we seal it up, we wall it off, and we pay rent for the rest of our lives. And then somebody says, bro, let's go back in this room. Let's open the door. Let's go back in this room. Let's go back in this room. And you go into the room and you see your 6-year-old frame and the soccer ball being handed and your father getting angry, and you see it, and it's as fresh now as it was when it happened. And it's the same for you, and it's the same for me. And you deserved a father who would get you and him both cowboy outfits. And you deserved a father who would roll around with you as a cowboy, shouting yeehaw, shooting into the air, and rootin' tootin' everything that you could get your hands on. If you've ever seen the movie Parenthood, it's a very good movie, I think. With Steve Martin, he orders a clown to come, but the clown doesn't come. They send a stripper instead for his kid's party. And so he ends up being a cowboy. And of course, it's a completely impossible standard for parents because he's Steve Martin, who is one of the most brilliant comics of the past half century.
Yeah.
And he just rolls into it and does it. And of course, when your kids say, you know, my daughter went through playing kitty cat games. She did baby dragon games. We did a game called Smorg because I'd read her The Hobbit when she was very little. And so I was Smorg the dragon, and we piled a bunch of plastic jewelry up around my belly, and I curled up, and she had to come in and retrieve the jewelry without waking me up, and you know, this kind of thing, right? And so she'd come, and I remember she kept running. And then I would wake up and I would chase her, and she would go to a little corner of another room by the dresser where she would hide, and I'd pretend I couldn't find her, and I'd sniff, and then I'd go back to the bed, and then she'd come back and get more jewelry, and it was a great deal of fun. We actually played it with some friends of hers a couple of times. Anyway, I just remember one time I was chasing her. She must have been, I don't know, maybe 2.5, maybe 3. I was chasing her, and she'd had enough of running away from the dragon, and she turned around and she just clocked me in the thigh. And it was like, dragon down, dragon Charlie horse, Smorg down. And, you know, it was like Bard with the bow at the end of The Hobbit. Boing. And, yeah, I mean, look, it's not like I'll do that on a regular basis, but that's what my daughter was into. And it was a great deal of fun. You just throw yourself in. You meet your children where they are, and you, I might say validate. It sounds very artificial or whatever. It's like, you want to play this? Yeah, we just made up this game. We used to play this game